All right, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? This is JU with GoaledMinds.com, and I'm here to talk a little bit about boxing. Actually, I just want to keep this quick. The fight that I really want to talk about is the Genaddy Triple G Golovkin versus Daniel the Miracle Man Jacobs. And I apologize if the sound isn't as good as usual. I'm just using the regular computer mic simply because I'm too lazy to run to the car and get my other mic. So I'm going to keep this quick. But essentially, it's a big fight, man. I'm really excited for it. First of all, I really do like both fighters, as I usually say. Actually, that's not what I usually say, but I have been saying lately since they've been putting together some really good cards in boxing. A lot of people consider this fight to be Genaddy Golovkin's kind of breakout fight. And, I do hope it is. And if he wins this fight, I do believe that it'll be a well-deserved victory. And I think it'll put a lot of people who say he's never fought anybody to rest. It's also likewise for Danny Jacobs. Apparently he wants to go by Daniel Jacobs now. He doesn't like he wants to go by Daniel because he doesn't like Danny. He thinks that's for kids. So whatever, we'll call him Daniel Jacobs. Let's see. I just want to pull up their records real quick. Let's see. We got Daniel Jacobs' record here. So according to BoxRec, let's see, he has 33 bouts, so 32 wins, 1 loss, which I will discuss a little bit. And then you have Genaddy Golovkin. Let's see, really, all these people came up for Genaddy. Let's see. I probably should know this off the top of my head, but I always want to be factual. Okay, so he's 36-0. First of all, both of these cats have like a 90. They're in the 90th percentile for KOs. I think Daniel Jacobs is on like a 12 win streak right now, since his first and only loss to Dmitry Pirog. And then, of course, Genaddy Golovkin, top of the food chain right now, has like 33 knockouts, I believe. Never defeated. Crazy amateur record, somewhere in the 300s. But let me get into this fight. So, like I said, I want to keep this quick. But I think that, first of all, I've heard the comparisons. Well, let's talk about Danny Jacobs. Let's talk about his record, which is only 1 loss, right? And that loss came to Dmitry Pirog. Now, I've watched this fight. I've heard a couple people say that Dmitry Pirog has no similarities to Golovkin. I beg to differ. That's just my opinion. I think there's a lot of things that they did similarly, and I think that poses a big problem for Jacobs. One of the things that I noticed about Pirog was that, first of all, he stays very balanced, like Genaddy Golovkin. He has well, I don't know if he typically does this. I'm not gonna lie, I haven't watched all of his fights. In fact, that's the only fight I watched. But in that fight, he used a lot of aggressive counter punching, which is something that Genaddy Golovkin is known for. That's a specialty. Essentially, a lot of people believe that in order to be a counterpuncher, that you are always on the defense, something like a Floyd Mayweather, which is, he's obviously a counterpuncher, but it's a different type of counterpunching. Genaddy Golovkin and Dmitry Pirog in the fight against Jacobs move forward, use a lot of feints, use their jabs well, but essentially what they do is they probe your defense and kind of see what you're going to do, and then counter off that as they move forward. The thing with Danny Jacobs in that fight that I recall was that Danny Jacobs, first of all, has a tendency to kind of square up at times, especially when he's on the ropes, which cost him the fight. That's something that he just won't be able to do, or he should not do, against Genaddy Golovkin. Again, that's his wheelhouse. So if you're against the ropes, unable to move backwards, or even use really effective lateral movement, you're going to be you're in for a long night, or a short night. The thing that Genaddy Golovkin does well to his opponents is that, number one, he's able to cut off the ring exceptionally well. I can't think of that many fighters who cut off the ring that good. I mean, he essentially will keep cutting the ring off until you are in a corner. He's done it to almost everybody, you know, from Gabe Rosado to Willie Monroe, Matthew Macklin. They always ended up on the ropes. They start off well using their lateral movement, and once Genaddy Golovkin kind of determines your timing, your footwork, your speed, he then makes the ring extremely small for you, and now you're kind of fighting in a phone booth that you don't want to be in. So Daniel Jacobs obviously has to stay off of the ropes. Now, Daniel Jacobs is a great boxer. I do believe he is an A-level middleweight, which is why this fight is so exciting. However, I don't believe that his footwork is that great. I think it's good, but I think really what he relies on is his power. And so his footwork is good when he's moving forward, but he has a very bad tendency to move back in straight lines. And then again, square up when he's on the ropes, or if he overcommits on a punch, he squares up. So he's going to need to do a lot of circling, you know, trying to move out to his left. If Genaddy Golovkin gets close, he's going to have to try to smother Golovkin's punches and then reestablish himself in the center of the ring. His best hope is in the center of the ring, where he can use his length. He is the taller and longer fighter by a pretty significant margin. So that's going to be, you know, his real key to victory. And he does have great power. He relies on his power because he trusts it. You know, we saw what he did to Peter Quillen. A lot of people believe that that stoppage was a little too quick, but I don't believe that. I think any more punishment, he would have just hurt Peter Quillen more than he had to be. He wasn't in the fight, obviously. He was just trying to survive at that point. So I believe it was a due stoppage. But with that being said, he has to be able to land something early on Genaddy Golovkin. He's going to have to get him to respect his power. I don't think he has the better jab than Golovkin, but if he can establish it and keep Genaddy honest, then you know, he has a chance for success. I think Daniel Jacobs has some great people in his corner. You know, he has Andre Ward probably giving him all types of tips and tricks when he's in there. Because, you know, obviously I think for someone like Andre Ward, who is constantly haunted by Genaddy Golovkin's name, I think it would be great for him to help somebody to stop him. So he just, you know, he kind of puts the quote-unquote hype train to rest. And so he's getting some great advice. I think he has Virgil Hunter, obviously, because he's training at Virgil Hunter's gym. And, you know, a lot of people talk about Virgil Hunter as a coach. It's hard to deny when he has some, you know, when he is training Andre Ward, whether, you know, he's really responsible for that or not. I don't know. I'm not in that gym. But the fact of the matter is he does have a great world champion on his hands. So, you know, I think that he's going to get some good advice from Virgil Hunter. I did hear something, I think it was Counterpunch Boxing, who was talking about his weight. And so I think the obvious game plan for Danny Jacobs at this point is to come in big. I think he wants to try to, again, establish himself. I don't think he plans to do too much running. I think he plans to try to create some subtle angles, but really sit in the pocket, stay close, where we have seen fighters like Kell Brook and Willie Monroe have some success. So I don't think he's going to be trying to fight off that back foot. And Counterpunch Boxing, the reason I brought that up was because he was asking or suggesting that maybe Daniel Jacobs doesn't make weight, which I don't think is going to be a problem at all. A lot of people don't know Chris Algieri, who was a former welterweight title holder, fought the likes of Manny Pacquiao and Provodnikov, just recently fought and lost in dramatic fashion to Errol Spence, who I will be putting a video up for Errol Spence and Kell Brook, because that's a great matchup, which there seems to be a lot of good debate over, so I definitely want to take part in that. But anyways, Chris Algieri, a lot of people don't know, and don't quote me exactly on this, but he's definitely one of the two. He's either in med school or an actual doctor. It's one of the two. I think he's in med school or just like almost there. But anyways, he's acting as Jacobs' nutritionist. And so I believe that, you know, somebody like Chris Algieri, who's an extremely intelligent dude, knows exactly what he's doing, is putting the right proper protein, and I think the goal is just to have him come in big, right on the dot. And, you know, I've never heard of Chris Algieri ever having any weight issues. He makes the weight perfectly and has tremendous conditioning. So I think that's a great person to have in your corner. And I'm very big on who you have in your corner, who's behind the madness. But Golovkin has some subtle things in his corner too that I think are going to be very interesting. One very in particular, but I'll get to that in a second. Anyways, long story short, because I don't want to make this video too long, I'd like to get it uploaded before I go to work. Excuse me. But I don't think the weight's going to be an issue. I think Danny Jacobs has to establish a jab, and he has to establish his power very early in this fight in order to have some chance of success. He has to stay off those ropes, obviously, so he's going to have to use a lot of lateral movement. I hope they've been working on his agility. A lot of people don't realize, you know, you watch boxing matches and they're like, why doesn't he move? It's harder than you think when you have a guy who cuts off the ring great, and essentially your body, as athletic as you may be, you know, sometimes your body just doesn't do what you want it to do, especially when, you know, you're in there with, you know, an A-level fighter like Genaddy Golovkin. But that is going to be a key to victory, landing something early, again, staying off those ropes. So that's going to be really all he has at his advantage. The one notion that he's going to try to use some of the things that Kell Brook used. I imagine he's going to try to land that uppercut when they're in close. But, I mean, to be honest, Kell Brook is by far a better boxer than Danny Jacobs. And that's my humble opinion. You know, a lot of you may disagree, but if Kell Brook was truly a middleweight, I mean, first of all, he would have gave Genaddy even more problems. And he did give Genaddy problems, and I'm a fan of both, of course. Definitely a fan of Genaddy, but he gave Genaddy some serious problems. His power just didn't translate at that weight. And, you know, hold on. Excuse me, sorry about that. But with that being said, sorry, I just had to close the door. But with that being said, yeah, I don't see Danny Jacobs being able to really pull off the type of things that Kell Brook was able to. Kell Brook has phenomenal footwork, A-level boxer, great jab, and his speed was a real factor. And Danny Jacobs, I just don't think has that speed. I do think he's faster than Genaddy Golovkin, but for how long he'll be faster, that's what remains to be seen. Anyways, in regards to Genaddy Golovkin, you know, again, obviously top of the food chain, very underrated in my opinion, but I think true boxing fans are believers. Unless you're one of the, you know, the race supporters, as I would say, essentially just going for boxers or rooting against boxers simply because of their ethnicity. And to you guys, I'm not talking to. So, you know, you guys can kick rocks on that. Essentially, I'm talking to just either real boxing fans or people that are genuinely curious about these fighters. But Genaddy Golovkin is definitely an A-level fighter. You know, they try to label him as just some type of knockout artist. He's far from a Tyson. Yeah, he has the ratio, maybe a knockout ratio, very similar, but their styles are completely different. You know, Tyson was definitely an offense-first fighter, extremely explosive. His fast twitch muscles were off the meters. That's why heavyweights couldn't handle him. So it was just different. Again, Genaddy Golovkin is more of an aggressive pressure fighter, excuse me. And again, he's more he's a pressure counterpuncher more so than anything, meaning he probes with his jab, and once he finds the openings, he exploits them. Some of the things that Genaddy Golovkin does well that a lot of people try to, you know, that a lot of people don't even notice. First of all, he's very good at varying the speed at which he throws his offense. Now, I saw some great, you know, video breakdowns and film studies of this, and to kind of keep it short and simple and try to explain it the best way that I know how. You know, every boxer, every person has a rhythm, especially when they're in a fight. it's just natural. You know, you have humans are creatures of habit. Now, what Gennady Golovkin does consciously, or maybe even subconsciously at this point in his career, because he's, you know, fought so many times, um, is he varies the speed at which you throw, or he throws. And so, for example, let's say he throws a 1-2-3, which is a jab cross hook. Now, the typical fighter, or even the best B level fighters, might throw it fast, might throw it slow, but they'll throw it in a particular rhythm. Pop, pop, pop. He might throw his like pop, pop, pop. And that little hesitation is hard to read for many fighters. And that's something that he does well. And in addition to that, going back to his jab, I think out of all the weight classes, he has the highest percentage landed of jabs. And we know by watching him and Lemieux fight that when he's in there with a fighter that he knows can punch, he's going to establish that jab very early on. And it is like getting hit with a brick 20 times around. I mean, I think it broke Lemieux's nose. If it didn't, it definitely messed it up in some form or fashion. But it looked like he just jabbed his neck off his shoulders. And, you know, he uses his jab in many different ways. Besides just sticking it, you know, he'll use it, again, as a probe. He kind of sees what you do with your offense, your defense, and then counters from there. Makes you counter his jab or try to counter his jab. In addition to that, he does a move that I love to practice when I'm in the gym, which is taking away your jab. He has this jab and a parry that he does at the same time that, you know, essentially makes you walk right into his jab while he parries your jab. And I think it's a beautiful technique, and he's perfected it. Also, his balance when he's, you know, in the pocket. He rarely takes that many steps out of the pocket. He's very good at subtle movement. His movement at the waist is extraordinary. The fact that he'll dodge 3, 4, 5 punches inside of the pocket and then keep coming forward or counter. He's always in position to hit, and that's what makes him so dangerous. So, you know, establishing his jab, obviously, not getting overly excited. You know, if Danny Jacobs is hurt, although Danny Jacobs is known to be chinny, you just never know. When a guy has power, you have to respect that power. And I do think Golovkin respects this power. There's a lot riding on this. Not only all of the belts, they're unifying a belt. Genaddy Golovkin, I think, has the world champion. I think it's either, what are they going for? WBA, I think. And he has the world champion, or the super world champion, and then Danny Jacobs is the regular champion, which essentially just means he's the #1 contender to the belt. And so, anyways, with that being said, I think Genaddy Golovkin, again, has to establish his jab, control the ring, cut off the ring when Danny Jacobs goes to plan B, because I think he's going to have to. Keep that chin tucked, because Danny Jacobs does have power. And then I think he has to exploit the body. I think once he opens up the body, and Danny Jacobs is a little bit unsure where to block and place his defense, is when when Genaddy Golovkin is going to probably land. If I had to take a guess at what punch ends it, and this is kind of my prediction, I think it's going to be the overhand right from Genaddy Golovkin. I don't think this fight goes past 6 at all. I think we're going to end probably the 5th or 6th round. If it goes past that, it's going to be very interesting. But again, my prediction is probably going to be, or it is, Genaddy Golovkin somewhere around round 6, maybe 5, 6, or 7. The midway, I think one of the fighters is going to be too badly hurt in this fight, and you know, I just have the feeling that it's going to be Danny Jacobs. I think he's just going to have a weaker chin. I don't think he's. I think if Pirog was able to exploit defensive flaws, then I think Genaddy Golovkin will, because he has extreme ring IQ. And he's a much stronger puncher than Dmitry Pirog, and I think his jab is going to be the key factor all night. I think we're going to see that jab come out just like it did for David Lemieux. So, that's my prediction. But where I want to go a little bit after that is kind of what happens after this. I think, number one, I think a lot of the naysayers are going to have to give him some respect, whoever, because honestly, Danny Jacobs can win this fight. I'm not taking anything away from that man. That man is a great fighter. I'm just going with my gut instincts on this one. I think there's gonna be some drama in this fight that we're not used to seeing. I think this is a step up for Genaddy Golovkin. It's obviously a step up for Danny Jacobs, and I think that we're going to see a little bit of drama in there that we haven't seen for both fighters. Both are very resilient, so it's going to be an interesting matchup. But after this, the big question is, will he fight Canelo? I think he will fight Canelo, if I had to be honest, but I don't think Canelo is planning on fighting him. I think Lemieux and Stevens just happened. I think that was an option, but I think Lemieux looked too strong, so he's probably going to stay away from that fight because he doesn't want to get knocked out. I think Canelo and Chavez, I think Chavez has a puncher's chance, but I think Canelo takes that fight. He probably is just going to outbox him. The question is his chin. Can he take a real big punch? Can Chavez land that big punch? We'll see. But one of my theories is that the reason Canelo moved up is I do think he has plans to fight Genaddy, and of course I think that plan has to do with Genaddy getting old. So they're just waiting for that moment, just like when Mayweather was waiting for his moment, and he saw it when Marquez knocked out Pacquiao. So I think that's the game plan for him, is he's waiting to see when Genaddy gets old. I don't think Genaddy's going to get old, not yet at least. He doesn't take that much damage in fights. I mean, Kell Brook didn't really bring him to the limit. It's not like he's having these like Chocolatito type wars or these Manny Pacquiao type wars. He has a couple exchanges here and there, but I mean, I've never even seen him buzz, so I think his body's healthy, man. One thing I wanted to point out, bringing up Chocolatito, and that's what I was mentioning earlier about people you have in your corner. Danny Jacobs has a great set of people in his corner. I think what's remarkable is Chocolatito was considered pound for pound by most right now, and I would honestly agree. Number one is training with Genaddy Golovkin, and of course they're in different weight classes, so it has nothing to do with like sparring or anything like that. But any athlete, any real athlete, sports analyst, whatever, they're going to tell you that sports is mental, and I just think of how amazing it is to have two of the pound for pound fighters. I mean, I would definitely put both in my top three. And that's a personal, of course, of fighters right now. I think I think Genaddy is probably, in my honest opinion, I think he's man, I'd probably put him at number 2. Let me just be honest with myself. I'd probably put him at number 2. I think Kovalev 3. So those, and Chocolatito I think is number 1. But that's my top. But anyways, you got the 2 top fighters sharing ideas and knowledge and experience and just energy in general with each other, and I think that's a crazy thing. I mean, both of these guys are on an extreme run, and I do hope that if Genaddy Golovkin wins this fight, man, it is his breakout fight in terms of the masses. I think he's earned it. I think he has a couple of years left, and to be honest, we all want to see that Canelo fight. As Canelo gets a little bit better, which I can't say he has. I think he's gotten a little bit better. I do think Genaddy Golovkin takes it. If we catch that fight this year, which I'm not holding my breath for, but if we do, I think it'll be an amazing fight. And Genaddy Golovkin is somebody that's really, really approaching the sport the way I think most true boxing fans really should appreciate, wanting to unify the belt. One of the things that people always say, and that I hear people say, is that in order for him to prove he's great, he has to move up. But in my opinion, when you tell a fighter he has to move up in order to be great, you're already admitting some level of greatness. You're saying that he's so great in his division, he's so dominant, that there's nobody there for him. And those fighters that he's fighting in the middleweight division, let's be honest, they're not bad fighters. Willie Monroe is not a bad fighter. Matthew Macklin wasn't a bad fighter. Daniel Gill, maybe over the hill, but not a bad fighter. We praised Cotto for doing it. So, he fought Kell Brook, and yeah, Kell Brook had some success because Kell Brook is an A-level elite fighter, and he broke his face. So it's hard to say that he's not a great fighter, but I do agree, man. I think Daniel Jacobs is going to be his toughest test to date, and I think if he passes that, you're going to have a lot of people saying, what can you say? what can you say? I mean, he has to move up now. There's nobody in the 168 division that's worth it. And then you got the Andre Ward thing, but now he has to jump up 2 weight classes. I mean, Andre Ward won't even give Kovalev his rematch yet, and we're talking about trying to get him to fight Andre Ward. I don't think Andre Ward wants any parts of him right now, because I think Genaddy Golovkin is a better fighter than Kovalev, and so if you move him up, you know, you got a serious issue on your hands. But that's 2 weight classes, so you know, we're talking irrelevance right now. He's a small middleweight. You know, he is a small middleweight. One thing that is interesting that's taking place, of course, is the Charlo Bro that's coming up to the 160 division, and I think that'll be a great fight. So we'll see, man. I want to see him fight Saunders. I want to see this man unify the division. That's his goal. It has nothing to do with money. A lot of people say he needs Canelo for money. A lot of you guys don't know he signed a Jordan deal for $25 million. I'm still here, okay? What I'm saying is he signed a Jordan deal for $25 million. Think about that. That has nothing to do with his boxing money. He probably sees $5 million a fight, maybe. He maybe even more, right? So let's say he's what, 33-0. He wasn't making $1 million, but let's say for his last 10, let's say 8 fights, he's made $5 million. It's what, 40 mil? Let's say you cut half of that. That's 20 mil, right? He has 20 mil. Plus the Jordan deal, 20 mil more. Cut that in half for taxes too, so at least 30 mil he might be sitting on. You know what I mean? And we're not talking other endorsements or promotional money he might be receiving in Kazakhstan for businesses we don't know about. The dude's paid. So let's not talk about he needs him for money. It has nothing to do with that. What he's trying to do is solidify his legacy, and that's it, simple and plain. So anyways, I'm hitting on 30 minutes, man. I wanted to keep it quick. My prediction is Genaddy Golovkin somewhere in the 6th round by stoppage, if not full knockout. And yeah, man, I'm interested to see this fight. If Danny Jacobs does pull out the victory, man, respects to him. You have to understand the level of opposition that he's getting ready to face right now. And yeah, man, so I'm excited for this. Other than that, man, make sure you leave a comment. I'd love to hear what you guys think. Also, like and subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to keep these as consistent as possible. Like I said, I'm excited for all the boxing matches coming up. So I'm trying to do, and average at least one a week. I'll try to average a little bit more. But other than that, check it out. And, I appreciate you guys listening and tuning in. My name is Ju from GoaledMinds.com. That's www.GoaledMinds.com, which you can see the link below. So check out the website. Again, like this video if you want more content, subscribe, and hit the bell icon, and I'll keep them coming, man. Other than that, I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.